Hey, just before we jump into the episode, I'm wondering if you're using Medic at your company, if you're an AE or a sales leader listening to this. I've implemented Medic 3 times when I was a VP of sales, and now I help sales organizations implement Medic with their teams. I've got a free deal scorecard that you can basically evaluate and score your opportunities using the MedPick framework to see where you've got gaps, where there's risk in your forecast, so that you can identify them and do something about it and mitigate that risk. So if you want to get a copy of that, head over to the website. There'll also be a link in the show notes. Go to therevenueenabler.com. You'll see there's a drop down called the Learning Hub. There's a button called the Downloads. When you go there, you're looking for the MedPick deal score sheet. You can get instant access to that, as well as other things like the What We've Heard slide, my ghosting playbook, cold call scorecard, story builder, AI sales assistant, and so much more. So head over to therevenueenabler.com, go check out the Learning Hub and our downloads, and let's jump into the episode now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hit Your Numbers podcast, and today we're going to be talking about frameworks for talent development and talent retention. I'm joined by Coralie. How's it going?
Very good, thank you very much. Great to be here.
Awesome. Looking forward to this chat. So just before we jump into, some of the frameworks and strategies that you're running with your team over at G2, maybe just give the listeners a quick intro into who you are, maybe a little bit about your journey, and then why you think this is such an important topic for leaders to be listening to, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Sure. So my name is Coralie De Robert. I have been working in tech for about 7 or 8 years. Before that, I was a journalist for a few years in France, in French, and I've been living in London for about 12 years now. I started my tech career as an SDR at Peakon that then got bought out by Workday, which was a great way to start the career because very high trajectory, high growth, fantastic sales academy to quickly learn. And then I spent over 4 years at SalesLoft, where I moved into leadership. And then in January of this year, I joined G2 and I am the Director of Account Management in EMEA. Got 9 people in the team. And the reason why I think talent assessment development is so important is that ultimately, if you manage to help everyone reach their full potential, this is for me the fastest and most secure way to have consistent results and have very happy teams. I believe happy teams are successful teams.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to get into a little bit about your journey. So you were an SDR and now you're in account management. I actually love that because I think a lot of orgs feel like you have to go SDR, AE manager, sales leadership. You don't. Like, I've had an SDR that's got into client onboarding and client support. I think like the pathways should be designed with the employee, and we should create that freedom to let people go and do what they do best. And I'm sure you'd agree based on your journey.
Well, I actually did that that classic journey because I was an SDR and I moved into AE. At the time, and I know some organizations still do that today, there was a lot of roles that were hybrid, where you would sign new business and then keep a handful of customers. So I actually, when I was an IC, an individual contributor, although my main remit was new business, I always had accounts that I was also looking after and did some renewals and some upsells. But yeah, I did like the SDR AE journey, and then I went into sales leadership, and my team was hybrid for the first year, and then actually for a whole year there were 360 full outbound net new sellers. So my last experience at SalesLoft was net new only, and then I went completely on the other side at G2, where I am existing business only. So I'm very grateful that I'm getting within my experience the ability to do everything and to do everything in depth, so I can have a full understanding of revenue streams and customer lifecycle.
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned you're managing a team of 9 now, is that correct?
That's right.
And they all 9 report to you, or do you have like a a layer below you that manages those people as well, or is it?
All nine report to me.
Lovely. Okay, so I can imagine, like most leaders I speak to, and when I was a leader, you're pulled cross-functionally as well. So you've got all of that good stuff to manage, as well as leading and inspiring and developing your people. From your perspective, then at G2, like how do you currently assess talent in your team? Have you got like a framework, a process, a strategy that you typically lean into?
Yeah, I do. When I joined the team, is the first thing, right? I had a very classic people, product, process approach, but the most important bit is the people. And I do have a framework. So the first thing I do is actually ask them, which is very important, is have one-on-ones which are dedicated to having an understanding of where people are coming from, where is it that they want to go, and where is it that they're self-assessing themselves in terms of their skills development, strength. So a typical question which I also ask in interviews is what makes you good at your job? What's your superpower? What are the things that you can teach others? And then ask for examples, obviously, because you want to make sure that people are self-aware, and also you want to make sure that they're not just chatting you up, and that you can double check that. So this is very important. And then the second part is, where is it that you're not very good? Where is it that you would need to get better? Or where is the one thing that you might never really be good at, but that you're self-aware about this, and that's fine because we're going to be building teams that have multiple skills. So this is super important, and not only tells me the actual skills of that person, it tells me a lot about their soft skills and that self-awareness, that vulnerability, that honesty they can have with me, their ability to learn or their desire to get coaching or learn. That's my first step. Then I've got a framework which is basically a spreadsheet in which I have specific skills that I believe are necessary for the jobs that we're doing. So it's going to be things that are very hard skills around sales methodologies and the application of these methodologies. We're a medpic house here. Very core things such as discovery, negotiation, and then there's a scale. Where do you think you are on that scale? And then softer skills. How personable are you? Good are you at building champions, or positioning yourself internally, or forecasting, things like this. And what we do is that after I've spent time with the team, I assess them, they assess themselves, and then we meet up and we compare notes. And based on that, it gives me a framework to develop them. So we decide on, like, we're going to do some co-coaching, we're going to read some books, we're going to do some trainings. So there's an entire way for me to, yeah, assess the team skills and the individual skills at the same time.
Love it. Yeah. So you mentioned something there that I made a mistake in my first VP role, which is I wrote down get intimate with your people, like really understand them inside and outside of work, right? What are their needs, wants, desires? Where do they want to go next? How do I help them get there? And surprise, surprise, I then struggled to inspire those people because I didn't really understand what they cared about. And it was a lesson, an expensive lesson that I learned. And one that we didn't really have the time and the money to make. But hey, you have to learn from doing those things. So yeah, anyone that's listening to this that maybe's been in seat for a while or they're just getting promoted, like do carve out good quality time to properly get to know your people. Their wants, needs, desires. Otherwise, you already struggle to connect that and close that gap. And I love the questions here around like what makes you good, what's your superpower. If you were to miss your quota, or when you do miss your number, which happens every now and then, like why does that typically happen? We want to create a team of people that are super self-aware. Like my point of view on the kind of sales leadership piece is that we should be trying to retire ourselves. When I quit my last job to start this business, I'd say that quite a lot. My job is to retire myself so that you guys don't need me anymore. But at first, I had to help them become like really self-aware, show them where to look at the data, help them look through the same lens that I'm looking through. I'm a big, I implemented Medic a few times in my sales leadership roles now. I help orgs do it. So I'm like, hey, when I'm doing a deal review, just so you know, this is what I'm looking at. And this is then when I'm going to start asking these kind of questions. You should kind of think about that too. And what I found 11 months later, was that reps were coming to our one-on-one saying, hey, I know what you're going to say. I listened to the IBM call. I also noticed this, and I'm like, exactly. And at that point, like, yes, I wanted to go and build this business. I was having a baby, so I wanted that some freedom and flexibility. But I was like, I kind of felt a little bit comfortable doing it as well. Like those guys no longer needed hand holding; they could move at their own pace, and because they were more self-aware and knew what to look for, it was no longer the after event where you're like, hey, in a one-on-one, you're like, hey, this was a really good call, but we let ourselves down here. It's a bit too late at that point. When they're super self-aware and they see it happening live in a conversation like we're having right now, they're like, hey, when the opportunity arises in a few minutes, I'm going to do this because I know this usually leads to a good outcome. And that's what I've learned in the past. And I think that's just such an important thing that more and more and more orgs should be doing so that they can create that scale and that high performing team. Would you agree?
I 100% agree, and I think beyond that, it also was born out of necessity for me because I have 9 people, I've got 600 customers, I've got like something around 15 million in management. I do not have time to proactively go and pick on the 9 people in my team to tell them, hey, I've had like loads of time to listen to your gong goals, and I've noticed that you need to get better at second level of discovery. I can't. I just simply cannot be proactive with such a big team and such a big remit. So I need to build people um, that have this self awareness, and also something very important is that they feel safe, that they can come to me saying, hey, I messed up, or I'm actually really bad at this, I need you to help me get better. And vice versa, being like, oh, I've noticed that my colleague, because I was sat next to them, was on a call, and they get really shitty metrics. I'm really good at this, so I'm going to go and teach them. So I'm creating a culture as well of self support
Yeah.
and collaboration. That means that if everybody feels very comfortable in what they're good at and comfortable in asking help and where they're not, then everybody starts teaching everyone. And when I'm thinking of hiring, I'm thinking about skills gaps, and I'm always looking at everyone I'm going to bring into my team needs to get everybody else better. So if I know that we're not, big thing at the moment is I'm teaching everyone value pyramids and how we need to really start our discovery even higher, right? We need to think industry, we need to think category, we need to think north north star for every company, because that's what's going to allow us to speak to everyone within the business. um, and I'm looking for that. I'm hiring at the moment, and I'm looking for someone who's a superstar at this, because they might be terrible at negotiating, but that's fine. I've got really good people in my team that can negotiate really well. So yeah, and I'm also the same way you're like, I need to think about retiring myself. I'm trying to create a team which in itself just needs a little guidance from time to time from me, but not proactive training, because I don't have time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like some of the orgs that we go in and kind of do programs with, usually like really poor capacity from like the ratio from leadership to rep. That ratio is usually significantly large. So they're just tapped out. And I always do say like you need to start fostering that culture of you know high performers start to like want to go out of their way and share the gong calls or the templates or the business case that seems to get the CFO to want to say yes. Like all of these little things are happening in your business, and the bigger the business gets, the more silos you'll create, and you need to close that gap. And something I used to say to my team quite a lot was like, I know individually you guys all have a selfish interest in being successful, but if the team's mega successful, I've got an easier conversation to go to finance to say, hey, can we buy Gong? Can we buy extra tools that would then help put more money in your pocket? So for a second, let's just help the wider team. It will end up putting 2-3 times the amount of money in your pocket, in the midterm. Let's kind of get behind that and rally around that. And, you would then start to see people going into Gong and pushing a snippet of a metrics quantification conversation into a Slack channel, and then people would go and listen to that and steal little parts, and the next minute you'd hear something from John's call in Sarah's call, and she gets a good outcome. And that's so important. I just feel we're in all these WhatsApp groups, right, with other sales leaders, and there's so much like, what database tool do you use, or like, do you use like a DSR? It's like, no, let's just take a second, forget about technology for a second. Let's just put the core foundations, the operating system in place, this stuff we're talking about, and then when we layer in the tools and everything else, like everything else is good to go. And I feel like we just skip that part in a lot of orgs, and we go straight to what's our tech stack and should we refresh it every 6 months.
Yeah, and I think that's also what allows you to have an always on mechanism for talent assessment and for skills assessment. Because as much as I was saying, the first thing that I do is even in interview, right? I'm assessing the talent and the skill at this point. Then I'm having these usually quarterly moments where we stop, look at it, reassess what was it that you were good at, what did you learn, where is it that you want to develop next time. Um, when you create that culture where people start sharing their wins or asking for help, you bubble up naturally this, okay, the team seems to struggle with that person seems to not be sure how to do a proposal properly. That person, however, just shared a fantastic discovery that they've done, a multi-threading technique. So yeah, just create basically a machine that means that, again, you don't have to be too proactive. You can allow yourself to be slightly more reactive.
Yeah, totally. And do you have anything that's different? So you're looking at like at a team level, and
Yeah.
imagine you had like some kind of heat map, and you're seeing, okay, there's lots of faces on this heat map over in, I don't know, poor cost justification area. So we need to do a group initiative here versus, hey, in a one-to-one. How do you kind of work with that with such a large team?
So I do a breakfast and learn every Thursday morning, which is a 30 minutes rep led training session, enablement session. And every quarter we sit down. The first breakfast and learn of every quarter is actually deciding on what are the topics that we want to talk about during that quarter and who's going to take what. And I use that as a way for the team, because I don't say anything. Like, I've got a couple of ideas or things that we should be doing, but I let them again say, I feel like I'm not very good in selling this product, or I keep getting this churn risk and I'm not entirely sure how to combat it. And what I think is quite fantastic is that the reps who are, so there's an agreement usually, like, people start voting for what they want to learn about. But usually it's the rep who said that they feel really weak in one area, then decide to take that area to present to the rest of the team, because they know that by having this commitment that I'm going to teach the rest of the team about something, then I have to become an expert in that specific area. I need to learn about it. I need to go and ask enablement. I need to go into, we use HighSpot for, finding all of our documentation. There's G2, there's a wealth of information. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's about taking the time to go and learn and go deep into a specific subject, and find examples and stuff. And it's a good mechanism uh, to identify a gap in team's knowledge or skills, and to get the weakest within the team to actually become the best in that specific area.
So we've built the leading skill optimization platform with 400 plus sales lessons, 12 courses from prospecting all the way through to late stage deal negotiation and more, one-to-one sales coaching and AI sales assistance. And I want to give you 7 days free access to the platform. The reason I want to do this is because nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. And after training and coaching hundreds of sales reps and teams in the last 2 years, most haven't mastered critical selling skills, and it's preventing them from being promoted, earning great money, and building a great career in B2B sales. So go to the revenueenabler.com, grab a free trial, and join hundreds of salespeople that are closing their skill gaps and mastering sales. There's a link in the video description. I'm looking forward to getting you set up. Give me a shout with any questions. Love that. If anyone's listening that's getting excited, I definitely reach out. It sounds like, I don't know if anyone else can tell, as you're saying this, like this doesn't feel like it's just like made up kind of promotion. Feels like it's bedded into the business, which again, I just don't, I have conversations like this like all of the time, and I just don't see this kind of stuff being prioritized. I love the breakfast and learn initiative. I mean, the reps are happy because they're getting breakfast, right? But at the same time, one of their peers, not the enablement team, who's been out of the trenches for 20 years or maybe never even been in them, one of their reps that is excelling in a specific area is leading the conversation. I love it. I actually, part of the podcast is based on a program that I used to run with my teams called Mastery Monday. Every Monday, we'd pick a topic. Usually, it'd be informed by data. So, like, we can't argue with it or get emotional. And it'd be like, cool, it's just all about mastery. Maybe it's about getting access to an economic buyer. Maybe it's about building a business case, co-creating it with a champion. And, we've seen someone's doing a really good job in it. Maybe it's just a really good way of making a cold call. Whatever the challenge that we're facing across the team, we would just run that session, and I would have nothing to do with it. I would say, hey, Bob, you're up this week. Here's the deck. And it's like a 5-slide deck. Like, what's the skill? How do you do it? Why is it so important? Here's an example of me doing it with a recording, and then here's a role play exercise. And the rep would just take the team through best practices. And then they'd say, hey, I'm not just talking a good game here. Let's watch a 5-minute clip of me doing it. And then it'd be like, cool, let's use the breakout rooms or on Zoom, or if you're in the office, let's go into different corners of the office and let's just role play this thing out. Like, speed to application is so important. Let's learn something, let's apply it, and then let's just go and implement it in our business. And that was managed at the rep level, which meant then it wasn't another thing on my to-do list, which, again, I've been there. Other priorities come in, end of quarter, board expectations, whatever it is. You have to drop some of this stuff to go and deal with that. You're now creating, like you said earlier, this kind of culture of like ownership around this stuff. And if you need to go on holiday for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, this stuff, your Thursday breakfast and learn sessions will still be happening.
I'm actually in Paris next week, and one of my rep came to me being like, "Where's the plan for next week?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not here. I haven't." I was like, "Oh, cool. Can I take it because I want to teach the team about that specific new product that we've got." I was like, "Yeah, you go.
Love that.
You enjoy it."
Yeah.
And you know what? Also, and I see that more and more. Like when I was at SalesLoft and I moved to leadership, then I had sold the product for 2 years. So I was a product expert. I could do it. I could jump on any deals. This is my first gig actually where I come in and I haven't been an IC. And it's humbling because the team asks me to come on calls sometimes and I'm like, I can, but you're much better than I am on these calls now. Like I can come as a figure of authority sometimes, or just try and have another voice or try a different angle, and obviously, but I can't sell that product as well as you can. I can't position the value prop as well as you can because you do it every day, and this is why I think that I can come and teach them specific concepts or help them with skills that are applicable in any sales role. But there's some things that are very specific to their roles where they're much better than I am. And I want the best people in my team to go and spread that knowledge and these best practices. And I learn as well during the sessions as much as anyone else.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing. I actually wrote down, like, you can't sell as good as they can. And I think that's good. Like, if you're the best person by a country mile, then that's you're not building the right team. You're never going to scale. You're going to burn out and just go through this like churn hamster wheel, like hire, fire, churn, burn kind of cycle. And also, I don't know about you, but if I know loads about products, if I've sold it, if I'm super passionate about it, and I jump on that call and I see a rep struggling, I can't help myself but take over, and then I can't give it back because maybe I've just lost confidence that rep can handle this conversation. I think if you're not the expert, you join that call for the right reasons, which is like from a coaching perspective. And like you said, maybe a bit of authority if it's around a negotiation, good cop, bad cop. But you don't feel confident yourself, maybe jumping in because you're not, technically sound with the product. So you can't do it. So you can do what you do best, which is picking up on great coaching moments, maybe chuck a quick Slack message over to say, hey, like, let's dig into this a little bit more. Good job, but let's probe a little bit more here. Like, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that.
No, 100%. And yeah, if you're better than anyone in your team, you've not built the team that you should build, for sure. At selling anyway. Like as
Yeah.
in like again, like there's I think I'm where I am because I was and I am a good seller, and there's some skills that you can apply everywhere. Asking the right question, having the right pace, mirroring, rapport building, business acumen. These are things that have not necessarily anything to do with the product that you're selling, right? And most likely a big part of selling is actually nothing to do with the product that you're selling. Um, but uh, but yeah, if I'm thinking that I would be doing a better job in an IC role than any of the ICs in my team, then I think I'm not doing the best job I can do as a manager.
Yeah, agree. And this all helps retention as well, right? Like it's so hard to find good people these days. The thing that really is frustrating is when one of those good people decides to go because we've let this bit slip. Like I would say lucky, but maybe you create your own luck. In both my VP roles, we were not the leader in the market by a country mile. We were like new, very early stage startup, and I remember like we managed to recruit some really good people, and very rarely would anyone leave our org to go somewhere else because I over invested in all of this stuff, training, coaching, enablement. I'd get in the trenches. I'd make 150 cold calls in an afternoon as a VP of sales to put myself through the process and go, shit, this is a bit rough, isn't it? Like, it's hard to build the list. The CRM's got loads of dupes. The data tool hasn't got the right mobile numbers. And you do get hung up on quite a lot in the opener we're using. And then I can just go away, lock myself away, fix some of it, right? Come back and go, cool, enablement session. Here we go. Let's roll again. And it's amazing. People will go and take on mad challenges and objectives with you if you get in there with them and you show them that you want them to become great, you want them to build an unbelievable career, you want to shove money in their pocket, like if you can demonstrate that, you really won't have a talent retention problem. And if you don't, you'll just again get very frustrated that Julie on the team is leaving and you can't figure it out because she's at 150% every quarter, but it's because she wants to go to frontline manager and there's no development in that area. And Snowflake have reached out and said, "Hey, we've got this plan where we take people from reps to managers. Are you interested?" And times driven that.
The growth is certainly one of the most important aspects, especially for good people, right? Like obviously you want to retain the good ones. But this sentiment and of development, learning, growing, career development options, and perspective is incredibly important. And this is, I think as line managers, because obviously I'm a line manager, we have a lot of responsibility into this. But I also believe that organizations should support the individuals and the line managers in making sure that there are options for people to evolve.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it doesn't just have to be SDR to AE. It doesn't just have to be AM to senior AM or whatever the typical paths are. Like anyone can go anywhere in the organization, right? And I think that will open up even more with AI and more technology, being easily to create. Be surprised, what those paths look like even in the next 6 months, let alone in the next 5 years. Okay, some really, really good stuff. Look, you've been doing this for a little while now, so I'm sure you've made some mistakes as well on the way, like I have. Are there any that you're happy to talk about that you were like, I can't actually believe I've done that? That maybe the listeners might resonate with, or maybe they're about to make that, and maybe we can give them a push in a different direction. Anything comes
I
to mind?
mean, yeah, all the time. I've done so many. I keep making some today. I mean, specifically around development, I think the biggest mistake I've made, and that I still make sometimes today, is that I've got all these, great frameworks, great conversation, and then something happens, and then you get busy, and then you don't really follow through with it. I think that can still happen today, and that's not good because you don't want to have all this good intention and good conversation and start laying a path, and then actually you don't really act on it, and it's difficult. It's difficult to create that space, offer the coaching and development, and actually follow through because it's very time consuming. Um, So I'm trying to find the right accountability mechanisms for both me and the rep to make sure that we keep each other accountable and we can pick each other up when needed. Um, about like, hey, you said we were going to do this. I actually need you to do this. And vice versa, for me to be like, hey, you said you wanted to get better at this, so I kind of need you to start learning about it. I can't put it in the silver platter for you that you're going to become a master at negotiation. You've got to be doing the work. You've got to train. You've got to, you can't just get you can't just sign up to the gym and not go to the gym and then not understand why you're not fit. There's a bit of like,
I struggle with that one all of the time. Don't get it. I've been paying for David Lloyd for 2 years now, but haven't changed. It's because I
yeah,
just don't go enough. Yeah.
it's the same talk track we use with the customers when they're like they've got G2 and they're like, we don't, we've not gone up in ranking. We're like, yeah, well, you didn't generate any reviews.
Yeah.
You've got to work for it. You can't
Yeah.
just expect for it to just turn around. So yeah, there's that. I think one thing that I'm both really good at and also terrible at is I'm very direct and I deliver feedback there and then. uh don't beat around the bush. I can't help it anyway, it just comes out. And it's good because I've got good relationship with the team, and it's very radically candid for the people who are listening to this podcast who are familiar with the radical candor framework, which is where you want to be. But sometimes it trips you up as well, and you just end up being like lacking the right words or context, or being a little bit oblivious to delivering a feedback in a moment where maybe the rep is not capable of hearing it, or it's not going to bring anything good. And I have stories that I can share about me. At the end of the quarter, I was going around the desks and I was gathering everyone's forecasts on every deal that was committed, and being like, where are you at? Is the contract out? If not, what needs to happen for you to get the contract out? When is your next step? When is the next call, etc.? Because obviously day trackers at the end of the quarters. And I had one of the reps that had the most pipeline of the entire team and the worst win rate of the entire team, and he already knew they was a little bit in a tricky position. And but it seemed, how can I put it, he had a little bit of an attitude of like, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I was like, well, I'm very much worried about it. And you should be very much worried about this because
You're the only one I'm worried about. You're keeping me up at night, buddy.
basically, yeah, I was like, because if you don't deliver on the pipeline that you've had all quarter, then this is going to be your last quarter. And I had a really good relationship with him, and he had to understand this, that he couldn't just have a lax attitude about this, that he if you're not going to feel the pressure on your own, then you're putting me in a position where I'm going to have to put the pressure on you, because the pressure is very much on. And where I completely messed up is that I said that in front of everyone, which is a terrible thing to do. And he pulled me into a room after end of quarter, which I thought was actually very mature of him, because I was obviously stressed. And he said, by the way, completely unacceptable. If you have this type of message to share with me, there's one-on-ones for that. There's meeting rooms. Like, telling basically me in front of all my colleagues that I might get fired in 3 days is just a shitty thing to do. And he was right. So I'm not sure how much this is within talent assessment. Well, or there's a bit of that. There's a bit of making your rep sure that they understand the importance of the job that needs to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
was a big mistake.
Yeah. 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 No, done all of those. I think it's funny as well, though, right? Like, as a sales rep, I don't know about any of the orgs that you worked at, but again, majority of mine have been super early stage, like 10 employees, figuring things out, very little training. I think I went 8 years in my career when I joined BT, obviously a very established business, and we got 3 days of Huthwaite spin selling training off site. But pretty much everywhere else I went, it was, here's the product, here's the quota, here's the CRM, and off you go get them kind of thing. And we end up figuring it out. And a lot of sales reps complain that they don't get much training or much coaching. But when you step up and become a leader, there's even less, and there's not even that much online content available. Every person's selling their $57 outbound cheat code at the moment on LinkedIn, but nobody's selling their $67 leadership cheat code. Like, there's just not that much going. So you unfortunately have to make these mistakes because there's very few orgs that says, hey, here's like the manager manual. This is how you give tough feedback. This is how you inspire people. This is how you motivate. This is how you kind of do one-on-ones, set goals, blah, 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 run forecasts. We're told to do this stuff, so we just go do it, and then we get it wrong the first few times. And again, hopefully, because of AI, we will start to see, more of that content being created internally to help people, because I made all of those mistakes as a VP of sales, and they're expensive, and it didn't sound like yours blew up terribly, but imagine like the damage you could have done to culture, right?
Yeah.
That's an expensive mistake.
I think it could have been, yeah. I think in a way, because there's some good aspects to having this radical candor and just being very transparent and very honest and just delivering feedback. Is my team always knows where they stand every day. They don't need to wait for a quarterly or biannual performance meeting to understand what I think about them and where they need to get better. I think, again, I'm a strong believer in this always on feedback mechanism, and for them to give me feedback as well, right? It's super important. I'm also learning. I'm also on my own journey, and I'm nowhere near perfect. So yeah, I think it's sometimes you're just stepping out slightly of like the right space in which it's positive, and you went slightly on the negative side of it. I think sometimes we have to also be kind to yourself and accept that mistakes can be made, and as long as we're learning from them, then it's just part of the journey. And that is a culture that I want to have with my team as well, right? Like, it might be really, really good at negotiating until that day where you're going to put your foot down on a deal that you should just have taken and that you're going to lose, and you're going to piss off the CFO forever. You've learned that you pushed it to a point that you shouldn't have. So yeah, always on feedback mechanism is certainly the best way to assess and develop your own talent and other people's.
Yeah, I agree. I was lucky to get some good feedback when I was a VP early in my career, and they basically said, like, when you hire a new rep, before they join, give them a Google Doc and just ask them to write down what they believe their job description is and what they expect of you as their leader. You do the same thing. So what you believe their job description is and what you expect of them, and then you meet up and you have a conversation. It's basically, hey, you can call me out if I say I'm going to do something. Like, let's say it's an SDR, right? And they're like, hey, all I ask of you is that you give me brutal, honest feedback every Friday on 3 of my cold calls that week. And I'm like, cool, I can do that. It's my job, right? If I make up some BS reason for not doing it, you pick up the phone to me or you send me a Slack message saying, dude, like, where are you? I'm on the call, right? Like, your job, just because I'm the VP of sales doesn't mean the SDR who's never been in sales before can't call me out. Like, I want to create that space where we make a plan together and we stick to it. We're both accountable. Nothing else is more important than what you've asked of me, and nothing else is more important than what I've asked for you. There's going to be noise, always. My job is to kind of cut that out for you so that we can focus on what's important, which is developing you and you going out and hitting a big number. And I think that's just such a great exercise that every leader can do with new hires. I also used to do it with reps that maybe were losing direction on their pathway. Every 6 months I would say, hey, it's time to open up that Google Doc again. I want you to write down what your job description is, and then I want you to look at what you're doing every single day and tell me where the gap is. And it's just a good reinforcement of, hey, our job is to build pipeline and advance opportunities, not to play ping pong for 6 hours a day. And it just like helps get that clarity again and sets the standards and expectations, because every now and then we're human beings, we digress. Marketing asks us to get involved with a podcast or a conference or whatever, and because we're nice and we want to be helpful and we want to build our internal reputation, we end up getting distracted with all these different initiatives, and we forget that we're here to build pipe and close opportunity. So yeah, I think that's always a good one, is just like setting the expectations and making it clear that me as your manager and you as the rep, we're going to call each other out when we shit the bed and we don't follow through on what we said we were going to. So I think that's always good. And then, yeah, you mentioned something really interesting earlier around like just trying to get a good process and a rhythm going. I was interviewing a sales leader a few weeks ago on the podcast, and I loved what he spoke about, where like, in sales, like we build like mutual action plans, and they're like, these are the steps and the accountabilities and the owners and the timelines and things like that. I love that he does these inside of coaching development conversations. At the end, he makes sure they save time. They open up the Google Doc and they start to build that mutual action plan. And then by the time that deadline happens, again, they call each other out. If it hasn't happened, why hasn't it happened? Because we committed a week ago that we were going to do it. And when I asked, hey, is there anything that could stop you from doing it? We both agreed that there isn't. So how come it hasn't happened? And it's just a good way of just holding people accountable to doing what really matters. And that's what you've discussed in that conversation. So yeah, anyone's listening that may be struggling to keep, the glue together, maybe give those a go. They seem to help me.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I might steal that from you.
All right. So it sounds like you're recruiting at the moment. So maybe just let the listeners know where they can find you, maybe reach out. It sounds like you're doing some super exciting stuff. So definitely sounds like a leader that I'd want to go and report into. So yeah, where can the listeners find you if they're looking for their next adventure, their next challenge?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn would be the best place. Coralie De Robert. Again, a G2, so you should find me fairly easily. Please do get in touch. I am hiring right now, and usually, I'll have more roles most likely coming up next year. So yeah, get in touch.
Yeah, I highly recommend just reaching out, even if it's just like for future roles. Maybe the role that's hiring for at the moment isn't super relevant. I definitely took like 2 pages of notes here, and it's just clear that you totally get it. And it's really important that we go and work for people that understand it, and they're going to put as much into us professionally, not just for us to hit a number, because we want to build a great career in B2B sales, and we definitely can if we go to work with the right leaders. So this was an awesome conversation. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day. Looking forward to sharing this one with the network. Is there anything you would leave people with, or maybe one bit of advice you'd give people just before we wrap here?
If it's for individual contributors, I would advise you to take a similar approach with your leaders in terms of assessing their own talents and their own skills, and see if that leader skills can help you becoming better at your job, right? We should try and make sure that it's not just within a team of individual contributors that we're all making sure that they're teaching each other. We should also build teams that are going to teach us leaders stuff, and you as an individual contributor, make sure that you're interviewing your next leader as much as they're interviewing you.
Love it. Amazing. Great way to end the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next episode of the Hit Your Numbers podcast. All right, I'll let you jump to your next session. Have a good day. All right, thanks for listening to this episode. I've got something else I want to give you before we wrap up here. So we've built the leading skill optimization platform with 400 plus sales lessons, 12 courses from prospecting all the way through to late stage deal negotiation and more, one-to-one sales coaching and AI sales assistance. And I want to give you 7 days free access to the platform. The reason I want to do this is because nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. And after training and coaching hundreds of sales reps and teams in the last 2 years, most haven't mastered critical selling skills. And it's preventing them from being promoted, earning great money, and building a great career in B2B sales. So go to the revenueenabler.com, grab a free trial, and join hundreds of salespeople that are closing their skill gaps and mastering sales. There's a link in the video description. I'm looking forward to getting you set up. Give me a shout with any questions.